These are my week 5, so playing catch up, but week 5 running back Saturday superlatives, and I think it's a really deep and interesting running back class. I'm going to start with Georgia State's Logan Wright. In only 10 carries, he managed to rack up 214 yards with a long of 60 and 2 touchdowns. He bears watching. BJ Baylor, who has had a really nice year for Oregon State, 20 carries for 111 yards, 2 catches with a long of 27. Avante Patterson of Tuskegee had 148 yards with a long of 25. Also had another catch for 3 yards. And once again, a guy I'll be monitoring going forward. Staying with the SIAC, Savannah State's Angelo D. Durham had 14 carries and had a touchdown and 106 yards with a long of 64. Devin Starling in 29 carries, 120 yards with a long of only 14, but he was consistent. 4 catches for 49 yards and a long of 18. So showed good hands. And Hunter Cobb of Marist. This is a player that really intrigues me. I've been trying to get a chance to really concentrate on this particular player, and thickly built, really great jump cuts. 18 carries, 141 yards, 2 TDs, and a long of 45 yards. And this might be one of the best freshman running back in the country. And this is East Carolina's Keaton Mitchell. If you haven't watched him, I urge you to do so. He and Rasheen Ali, but Rasheen Ali is a redshirt freshman. I think Mitchell might be a true freshman, but I'll go back and check. But he's been a monster this year. 15 carries for 222 yards, a long of 68 and 2 touchdowns. Everyone knows about Sean Tucker, speaking of freshmen. Another young running back who's really terrific. Sean Tucker of Syracuse. For him, a relatively quiet day, but 24 rushes for 102 yards with a long of 17. Everyone knows about Kenneth Walker III. He's a person who has a legitimate shot. He's definitely a Heisman Trophy finalist, and he has a shot to win it all after transferring from Wake. 24 of 126, 3 touchdowns with a long of 15. Michigan State's very happy that he decided to change location. U of I, not a lot to celebrate for U of I this year. They've got some real problems in the program, but Chase Brown had a really good game in week 5. 26 carries for 257 yards, 2 touchdowns, and broke a Red Grange record. When you break a Red Grange record, you've done something. Clemson has maybe found their running back of the future. I mean, they're still sort of figuring out, but Kobe Pace had a really good game. 18 carries for 125 yards, a touchdown, also 2 catches for 41 yards, and a couple of kickoff returns for 44 yards, 210 total all-purpose yards. He and Demontre Tuggle, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit at Eastern Washington, are terrific all-purpose, all-around backs. Fred Davis Jr. of Mercer had a terrific game. 276 yards and 28 carries, 5 touchdowns, a long of 54. Also had a catch for 22 yards. They had no answers for him. Another really, really good, well-rounded running back at BYU is Tyler Algier. 22 rushes for 218 yards, 3 catches for 22 yards. Thickly built, not a burner, but good quickness. And a lot of people's running back 1 going into this year was Breece Hall at Iowa State. And he hasn't had quite the year as Iowa State. Hasn't had quite the year that people were expecting. But he showed up week 5. 17 carries, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had a long of 37, 2 catches for another 11 yards. Tyan Evans, another one of those impact transfers, lands at Tennessee and goes for 15 rushes, 156 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Give him the ball more. Also, another player that's really shown up, and I noticed him last year, but he's grown this year, is Mateo Durant at Duke. Terrific running back, 19 carries, 114 yards with a long of 37 and a couple of touchdowns. And I mentioned Demontre Tuggle a second ago. He's a terrific all-around football player, but he had a great game. 17 carries, 201 yards, touchdown, also long of 63, and also had a touchdown receiving. I mentioned Rasheen Ali, the Marshall, terrific young Marshall back. 19 carries, 113 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 catches for 48 yards. Catches the ball well, and a long of 12. And, of course, Bichon Robbins is another guy who's going to be a Heisman Trophy finalist at Texas. He had 36 carries, 117 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he's a beast. Jalen White of Georgia Southern, 13 carries, 157 yards. Only needed 13 carries to get it. 2 touchdowns. That was Brian Robinson. I hate when I do that. Brian Robinson of Alabama had 36 carries, 117 yards, 4 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, Tennessee, had 35 carries for 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, and also a couple of catches for 22 yards. Both of them are beasts. One's a bigger beast than the other one. One's a medium-sized beast, the other's a big giant beast. But yeah, terrific player. And Jalen Warren, another guy who's sort of flying under the radar. He and Malcolm Rodriguez at Kentucky are two guys kind of flying underneath the radar. I think they're both going to be NFL running backs, and they're both going to have nice careers. But in his case, he had 36 carries for 125 yards, chipped in a couple of touchdowns, also had one catch for 7 yards. Those are my running back superlatives for week 5.